morning. Reverend Art Lester of the Unitarian Church of Croydon, London, England writes, "These flowers are no cosmological accident. They're shouting at us, something we can ignore in scripture and even in poetry. And what they're trying to convey is simple. We are blessed. We light this chalice, and we know that these flowers, so lovely today, will fade tomorrow. But the blessing of love among people will go on and on. May our flowers and our love serve to brighten our church and gladden our hearts."
Good morning on this lovely, bright, sunny, if a bit chilly day. I'm Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And I'm speaking to you now, as always, from land that's the traditional territory of the indigenous Iowa people. Once again, I'd like to encourage you, if you hear a land acknowledgement this week, for everyone you hear, consider donating $1 to an indigenous support foundation of some kind. Indigenous education, indigenous healthcare, your call, but think about it. Meg Notch is our celebrant today, and Barb Martin is our song leader. Bruce Martin is our pianist, and Ann Mowry is our pastoral care associate this week. Lyra Halston, our membership coordinator, is here with us. And if you'd like to be connected to our online groups or want additional information about our church, please go through the email address she's going to put in the chat. We'd like to ask that everybody keep your mics muted during the service. After the service, you're welcome to turn it on and join us in the coffee hour breakout rooms. Today is our flower service, and I wanted to start out with this amazing short piece from Richard P. Feneman. In The Pleasure of Finding Things Out, he writes, "I have this friend who's an artist, and he's sometimes taken a view I don't agree with very well. So he'll hold up a flower and say, 'Look how beautiful it is,' and I agree. And then he says, 'I, as an artist, can see how beautiful this is, but you, as a scientist, take this all apart and it becomes a dull thing.' And I think that's kind of, well, nutty. First of all, the beauty that he sees is available to other people and to me too. Although I may not be quite as refined aesthetically as he is, I can appreciate the beauty of a flower. At the same time, I see much more about the flower than he may see. I can imagine the cells in there and the complicated actions inside, which also have a beauty. I mean, it's not just beauty at this dimension, at 1 centimeter. There's also beauty at smaller dimensions. The inner structure, the processes. The fact that the colors in the flower evolved in order to attract insects to pollinate it is interesting. It means that insects can see the color. It adds a question: does this aesthetic sense also exist in the lower forms? Why is it aesthetic? All kinds of interesting questions, which the science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, the awe of the flower. It only adds. I don't understand how it could subtract. Here in this church, we just spent 15 months scattered into our own homes. The scientists and the artists and the parents and the engineers and the dancers, all spread out across space and held together by this weird thread of Zoom meetings and telephone calls and visits in doorways and backyards. Let's face it, we've spent 15 months sounding like a seance on a Ouija board. Harvey, if you can hear us, blink twice. Patty, we know you're here, but we can't see you. Louise, are you with us today? Rap on something. We've made it through these fields of fire that have separated us from one another. And we're almost at the end, at the place where the artist and the scientist and everyone else can come back together and sit beside one another and share their thoughts and argue their positions and delight in learning and growing from one another in person. Today we celebrate all of the work and the love of the last 15 months, and we celebrate our community and our congregation, the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines.
And I have to chuckle and wipe a tear and just echo what Reverend Amy speaks about, and how grateful I am for this community and amazed that we got through the kind of year that we've made it through today. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. My name's Meg Notch. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I find it notable that I say that to my 5th grade students every morning. We say, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non-binary and trans folks alike, as part of our greeting in 5th grade. And for us to be able to share that in a public school is just a joy to me, knowing that our church is also a place where this is supported. Just brings me great joy. So just announcing my pronouns this morning is a happy thing. No matter who you are or where you've come from, you are welcome here. Whether or not you live in Des Moines or have ever physically been at First Unitarian Church, whoever you are, we hope you find thoughts that challenge you, a welcome that invites you into community, and people to accompany you as you journey. Our gathering song this morning is number 305, De Colores. The words are copied in the chat screen, so please keep your mics muted and simply sing along at home if you would like.
Thank you so much, Bruce and Barb. Our Time for All Ages story today is The King and the Frogs, which is an adaptation of a traditional tale from Africa. Once upon a time, there was a young king who married a very nice queen and settled down in a new kingdom to be its ruler. And the kingdom was beautiful and everyone was happy, and the king only had one problem. The queen snored. Night after night, he tossed and turned and listened to and then he had an idea. He would open all of the windows in the castle and hear the wind and the sounds of the night, and they would put him to sleep. So he ordered that all the windows be opened wide, and when he laid down that night, he didn't notice the queen anymore. First, he heard the wind as it rushed through the grass. Then he heard the frogs in the pond, a whole bunch of little ones going ribbit, ribbit, and then 2 or 3 big bullfrogs, raw, raw, and then he heard the mosquitoes buzzing. Oh no, he said, I'll never get to sleep this way. He laid awake all night, and in the morning he heard the birds whistling and chirping and singing in the trees. The birds sound beautiful, he said, but I am too tired to listen. I know, I'll get rid of the frogs. They were the worst of all. So he sent his guards out, and they scooped up all the frogs and carried them away to another land. That night when he lay down, he heard the queen snoring and the wind rustling, whoosh, and a lonely bullfrog or two, raw, raw. But then he noticed that the mosquitoes were no longer gently humming. They sounded much louder. The next night it was worse, and the night after that it was terrible. He could hear the wind and the queen and one last bullfrog, and the mosquitoes were everywhere, buzzing and biting louder and louder. Without the frogs to eat them, they were everywhere. This is awful, he said, swatting at mosquitoes. What have I done? That morning, instead of a lovely bunch of birds singing, the king heard birds chirping and chattering, birds squeaking and squawking, birds that sounded like they were laughing. It was a terrible bird party right near his window. Oh no, all the birds have come to eat the mosquitoes. Why did I ever get rid of the frogs? He jumped out of bed and he called to his guards and he sent them out across the kingdom. And he told them, bring my frogs back quickly. All day the guards searched their own land and the next kingdom over, and by nighttime the baskets of frogs were back eating mosquitoes as fast as they could. And soon the mosquitoes were no longer buzzing and biting everywhere, and all the king could hear was a gentle hum again. And the frogs were happy back in their pond, and the king smiled as he heard all of them croaking softly, and 1 or 2 of the big bullfrogs going wrong. He could hear the wind rustling, and he quickly went to sleep. In the morning, the birds were singing. All the extra birds had gone away. And he realized that he'd slept all night and he hadn't even heard the queen snore. Ah, he said, I would have saved myself a lot of trouble if I had just remembered that everyone is important in their own way, even if they are a frog. Every week we take an offering to support the wonderful work that our congregation does and the work of our partners, and we do it with great seriousness. So this is this week's offering words. A UU minister was walking to church and trying to juggle a huge bundle of flowers and plants for flower communion, and her rather crotchety neighbor saw her struggling, but rather than offer to help, the neighbor said, "What's all that junk for?" And the minister started to explain about Dr. Norbert Čapek and how flower communion began in Czechoslovakia in 1923 and how important it was. And the neighbor shook her head. "Oh, it's all foolishness," she said. "Did Norbert whoever really think they were all going to get you into heaven?" Not wanting to argue, the minister said, "Well, when I get to heaven, I'll just ask him what he wanted." Well, what if he didn't get to heaven? The neighbor said triumphantly. What'll you do then? Then you ask him, the minister said. The morning offering will now be given and received through a link in the chat. And as always, 1/2 of our electronic plate goes to support the internal social justice programs of the church, and 1/2 goes to our Faith in Action partners, Planned Parenthood and Central Iowa Immigrant Support Coalition. That was lovely, Bruce. Thank you. As we've realized over this year, church is all about connection and community. Human hands, human hearts, human beings coming together, laugh and cry together, and to bear witness as we minister and minister to one another as we struggle with the good and the bad and the everything in between. And Sue, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Sue wanted to talk to us for just a minute at this point in the service. Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, just want to let you know, I think some of you might know this, but some of you might have heard some rumors. So I want to just kind of clarify what's going on with me. I've been sick for like off and on for the last month. And a couple of weeks ago, I was diagnosed with bile duct cancer here in Des Moines. And I talked to a surgeon here and he's like, yeah, I've done it before. But it's a very rare type of cancer. And so I referred myself to Mayo Clinic up in Rochester. And they are like the world's best for bile duct cancer because it's very rare. And so I'm being followed by Mayo, and I'm having surgery on June 15th to remove the cancer. They believe the cancer is contained within the bile duct, and so they can get it off. So just want to let you know that I feel really good. I feel very positive about this, and hopefully we'll be back at church in September when church opens. In whenever, hopefully August or September, I'll be able to come back and be with you all. So just think of me on June 15th, send prayers or thoughts, good intentions for the surgeon, my family, and me. And also, I'm kind of hanging low right now. So if anybody has any good books they want to loan to me or titles of books I can pick up at the library, I'd appreciate that too. So thank you.
And Sue, just a quick question. Do you have a Kindle or do you prefer like books?
Books.
I also wanted to share, and thank you, Sue, for talking to us. I wanted to share Florence Freddy has been in the hospital this past week. She went in with dehydration and low oxygen. She is positive for COVID. but apparently they said she was asymptomatic with the COVID, so she was sick because of the dehydration. I've talked to her a couple times. She was able to talk to me. Answering the phone is still a little challenging because she's very tired, but she's at Methodist West. As of the last time I talked to her, she didn't know how long she'd be there. So you're welcome to call Methodist West to see about the room if you want to send cards, or call me and I'll find out to make sure she has not been moved. So Florence is at Methodist West. Please hold her in your thoughts and your prayers. I'd ask that you share in the chat right now the names of anyone that you want us to hold in our thoughts this week. I'd like us to remember that today is Memorial Day or Memorial Day weekend. So please share love and prayers and deep thoughts for all those who gave up their life in the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or any other branch of the U.S. Armed Services. Please hold them and their families in love today and always. May the light of our community shine on these broken places of the world. As we share the names, may the love of our community hold them all. May the work of our community support, aid, and comfort all those who are marginalized, oppressed, silenced, or at risk. May we never look away when we are needed. May those who are grieving be comforted. May we be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May we find rest. May the broken places be healed. May we be healed. And may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. Every week we light 3 real or virtual candles, one for all the joys and all the sorrows we've shared, and one for the names we've written, and one last one for all those things that are held deeply in our hearts, but which we haven't been able to speak about here today.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul.
Today's first reading is a longer poem by the Zen writer Rick Fields. Rick died at 57, but he spent his too short life writing about the meetings of East and West, of opposites. This is one of his more beautiful poems, and it reminds us that all is one. The artist and the scientist, 2 sides of the same coin. Thus I have made up. Once the Buddha was walking along the forest path in the oak grove at Ohio, walking without arriving anywhere or having any thought of arriving or not arriving. And lotuses, shining with the morning dew, miraculously appeared under every step, soft as silk beneath the toes of the Buddha. When suddenly, out of the turquoise sky, dancing in front of his half-shut, inward-looking eyes, shimmering like a rainbow or a spider's web, transparent as the dew on a lotus flower, the goddess appeared, quivering like a hummingbird in the air before him. She surely was a she, as the Buddha could clearly see with his eye of discriminating awareness, was mostly red in color, though when the light shifted, she flashed like a rainbow. She was naked, except for the usual flower ornaments goddesses wear. Her long blue hair was deep blue. Her two eyes, fathomless pits of space, and her third eye, a bloodshot ring of fire. The Buddha folded his hands together and greeted the goddess thus. "Oh, goddess, why are you blocking my path? Before I saw you, I was happily going nowhere. Now I'm not sure where to go." "You can go around me," said the goddess, twirling on her heels like a bird darting away, "but just a little way away. Or you can come after me. This is my forest too. You can't pretend I'm not here." With that, the Buddha sat, supple as a snake, solid as a rock, beneath a bow tree that sprang full-leaved to shade him. "Perhaps we should have a chat," he said. "After years of arduous practice, at the time of the morning star, I penetrated reality. And now, not so fast, Buddha. I am reality." The earth stood still. The oceans paused. The wind listened. 1,000 arhats, Batsivas, and Dakinis magically appeared to hear what would happen in the conversation. "I know, I take my life in my hand," said the Buddha. "But I am known as the fearless one, so here goes." And he and the goddess, without further words, exchanged glances. Light rays like sunbeams shot forth, so bright that even Sariputra, the all-seeing one, had to turn away. And then they exchanged mind, and there was a great silence as vast as the universe that contains everything. And then they exchanged bodies and clothes, and the Buddha arose as the goddess, and the goddess arose as the Buddha, and so on, back and forth for 100,000 kalpas. If you meet the Buddha, you meet the goddess. If you meet the goddess, you meet the Buddha. Not only that, the Buddha is the goddess is the Buddha. And not only that, the Buddha is emptiness, the goddess is bliss. And that is what and what not you are. It's true. So here comes the mantra of the goddess and the Buddha, the unsurpassed non-dual mantra. Just to say this mantra, just to hear this mantra once, just to hear one word of this mantra makes everything the way it truly is. Okay.
Thank you for that reading, Meg. Our choral music this morning is from Karen Kramer and the UU Singers. They are doing Shine Your Light. Thank you, Karen, and thank you to the choir. That was awesome. Thank you, Anne Roseboom, for that opening solo. Here are some words to think about in meditation this week. It's a Flower Communion Blessing by Thomas Rhodes. Within our hands, we hold the resurrection of the world. Transient and imperfect, these blossoms are still gifts of infinite value, like ourselves. Too often we seek permanence and perfection. Resisting change, blind to our shortcomings, we become caught up in the petty issues and routine activities of our daily lives. But may these flowers serve as a reminder as they allow themselves to open to the heavens, for despite their imperfections, they still have integrity. And though they are transient, they contain the seeds of transcendence, like ourselves. Let us then also open ourselves to mystery and wonder, fretting not about small mishaps or even for now great misfortune. For the resurrection of the world is at our fingertips. The resurrection lies within us. Let us keep a moment of silent appreciation together. Let's do 1 minute of silence right now.
Our second reading is by David M. Horst, entitled Garden Prayer. Early in the morning, before the children are awake and while the grass is still dewy, I like to walk in my garden. It's my garden only because it shares the same small plot of land my family and I inhabit. The garden does not really belong to me. I belong to it, at least for the short time I'm here. Today, I'm still in my slippers and have my first cup of coffee in hand. Much of what grows has been planted 2 or 3 homeowners ago. Some I've planted since our arrival, but if they belong to anyone or anything, the plants and flowering trees I come to see and smell, viburnum, dogwood, magnolia, and crabapple, belong to the sun and rain and soil. These living things are a beauty not of my making, though surely made of my desire. At the moment, the rose bushes are in full burst of red and perfume. The hydrangeas are sure to open their moppy heads as soon as the sun falls upon them. The weedy looking globe thistles are turning lovely blue and spiky. The foxglove, however, rules the garden. Its central stalk is 5 feet high and heavy with pink, scoop-shaped blossoms with charming freckles inside. I'm awed by the abundance. I'd intended to walk the garden simply to observe and wonder, but there's a weed that must be pulled, a stray stem that needs to be pruned, a blossom drooping and fading that should be snipped. So I set down my coffee cup on the back porch, grab a small pail, and go to work. I end up with muddy hands, wet slippers, and a pail full of weeds and trimmings. Why can't I simply observe and wonder? Why the beauty of my small garden? Oh, won't the beauty of my small garden survive without me? I step back to the porch to retrieve my coffee, now cold, stamp the dew off my slippers, and take one look back at the garden before I return into the house. The garden is no more beautiful now than when I first arrived. My weed pulling, pruning, and snipping haven't really improved the garden, nor made that much of a difference, as far as I know. It's like prayer. The words I speak don't really change things, but I know they change me. Join me, please, in our next song, number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. It is our centering song, and the words will be in the chat. Please keep your mics muted.
Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic on eye, linking sense to sound and sight. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise.
$525,600 How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter, in strife, in 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in the life? That's from Rent, Seasons of Love. And it asks us a good question. How do you measure a year in your life? How many good things have to have happened for it to be a good year? How many bad things for it to be a bad one? What do you remember? It makes us ask, what did we actually experience this year? I'm not talking about what happened. That's not the same thing at all. I'm not talking about all those minutes of your life you rushed through and wrote off while you were in a hurry to get to the next thing, because the year had become indeed some kind of dumpster fire of COVID and lockdown and worry and change and Zoom. I'm not talking about all the things you rushed through so that you wouldn't miss out on anything, while at the same time feeling like you were missing out on everything because of the lockdowns. What did you actually experience this year? What mattered to you? How did you mark this year's passing, those 525,600 minutes of your life? Stephen Dobbins wrote a poem that I love, and it's called Pursuit. Each thing I rush through so I can do something else. In such a way, the days pass, a blend of stock car racing and the never-ending building of a Gothic cathedral. Through the windows of my speeding car, I see all that I love falling away, books unread, jokes untold, landscapes unvisited, and why? What treasure do I expect in the future? Rather, it's the confusion of childhood loping behind me, the chaos in the mind, the failure chipping away at each success, glancing over my shoulder. I see its shape and so move forward, as someone in the woods at night might hear the sound of approaching feet and stop to listen. And then, instead of silence, he hears some creature trying to be silent. What else can he do but run? Rushing blindly down the path, stumbling, struck in the face by sticks, and the other ever closer, yet not really hurrying or out of breath, teasing its kill. When we sit down to watch a movie with our popcorn and our drink, we see a story of moving images, and they fool our eye and our mind into thinking it's all one piece. But it isn't. If we took that movie and looked at it for real, instead of the projected image, but look at the thing itself, we see that it's made up out of stills or frames. One unmoving picture after the next, images frozen in space and time. It's easy to make life imitate art. Each thing I do, I rush through so I can do something else. I know for me, large parts of this year felt like, let me just get through this minute to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Let me just get through this. When you get behind the wheel of your car, the movie of your life becomes automatic sometimes. And sometimes you look up and you're halfway home, right? And you think, how in the heck did I get here? I don't remember the first 4 exits. When you have 10 minutes to take a shower before one kid needs you to take them here and another kid needs you there, or before work needs you over there, do you even feel the water or smell that amazing body wash that you picked up for yourself because it really caught your attention? Do you feel the washcloth on your skin or the scratch of the loofah? Or is it just one more thing that you did to get through to the next thing and the next thing? Right now, in this frame, this frozen frame, are you already waiting for the next word, the next song? You ready for breakfast yet? You have just survived 525,600 minutes of a year unlike anything we've known before. We've just survived 525,600 minutes of something we hope will never happen again in our lifetime. And what happened in that time? Well, I'll tell you what happened. We're still here. What happened? Automatic didn't work. You couldn't shut off. Not very well. None of us knew how to face what was going on, at least not with any surety. None of us knew what online church looked like, what work from home and school from home and wearing masks and waiting for vaccines. What does community look like when you're trapped behind a screen? Each day of the last 15 months has been an experience in learning that old behaviors didn't always help. How many times did you rush to hug somebody and then stop and step back? It's been an experience in doing new things in new ways and holding our breath and keeping our fingers crossed, learning how to match our masks to our clothes, or maybe not. But we're still here. We've come across fields of fire to be here this year. We've come across too many meetings and too little time, and Zoom exhaustion and COVID worries. We've come across isolation, maybe fear, and church kept happening. Community kept happening, even when people were tired and scared and couldn't take looking at a screen for one more bloody minute. We had services and we had book groups and grief groups and Sangha meetings, vigils. We had classes, we showed up for social justice. Eventually, we had some choir practices. And we waited to be together again patiently and impatiently. And eventually, finally, hopefully, it's almost time to start a new church year. Time for fresh beginnings. A time to realize that maybe, just maybe, we've crossed most of the field of fire. Maybe we can really see the other side. And definitely, yes, definitely, our community is there waiting for our physical presence again. There was a great set of books years ago by a writer named Lucy Maud Montgomery called Anne of Green Gables. And the character's name was Anne Shirley. Now, for those of you who've read these books, Anne was an orphan with freckles and red hair and an absolutely overdramatic personality. She didn't quite fit in everywhere. She was never just coasting. She was always a little too loud or a little too tasteless or a little too clumsy, too outspoken for the people around her or the places where she was. But you loved her. You loved her because she was herself and she was living minute to minute, making her mistakes and kept on going. And there was a phrase she used that really caught in my mind. She used to say, "Tomorrow's a new day with no mistakes in it yet." Tomorrow is a fresh start. Next week is a fresh start. Tomorrow is a new day. And it's up to you how you will experience it, or if you will experience it at all, or if you'll just rush through it, waiting for the next thing and the next thing. Tomorrow's the day to begin to decide what you learned about life and community from this unique year. An article in The Economist called "Why is Everyone So Busy?" said, the problem is less how much time people have than how they see it. Ever since the clock was used to synchronize labor in the 18th century, time's been understood in relation to money. Once hours are financially quantified, people worry more about wasting or saving or using them profitably. When economies grow and incomes rise, everyone's time becomes more valuable, and the more valuable something is, the scarcer it seems. You have one life, and it is really valuable. When you spend any minute of it this coming church year, don't throw it away. Don't rush through it for the next thing and the next thing. Don't let it become currency to spend to buy you all the minutes that come after it. You've just spent a year surrounded by unfolding crisis and worry, unable to really ever relax into business as usual because nothing was usual. Yesterday, many of you brought your flowers to church for our flower communion bouquets. And if you haven't looked, This is them over here beside me. Some of you weren't able to get to church yesterday, and that's okay too. You're here in the spaces between the leaves and the glints of sun on the petals. We're all here. With any luck, we'll never again have to have a flower communion service where we're not together to share our flowers and our hugs and our songs. In this moment, we are sharing something unique. May our lives and our journeys bless this community in the coming year. May we be a blessing to one another. Because this year, I challenge you. Experience your life. Keep experiencing your life. Experience every minute. Experience it joyfully as the world works to come to a new normal. Love your life. Love your neighbor. Love yourself. Spend your precious 525,600 minutes being present as often as possible, doing what you love as often as you can, being with your community as much as possible. Remember the beauty of who we are together, symbolized by these flowers right here. Grow here. Plant yourself here. Spill your light out to help others grow. Be here now. Spend your minutes blooming, not destroying. Spend your minutes honoring the good and learning from the bad. Spend them letting go of what changed you and holds you back. Living rather than hoping to get a chance to live. Surround yourself with this community, with people who are doing the same. Life is too short to spend ridiculously. Life is too short to waste on I should have and I would have and I wish I had. Life is an ongoing triage situation, and you are both the doctor and the patient. Make the choices that let you live no matter what is going on in the world. Live. 525,600 minutes. Next year at this time, how will you tell us you measured a year in your life? Amen.
And now, together with my friends, Frida Kahlo, the artist, and Amelia Earhart, the scientist, we extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of this congregation. Go in peace and joy, holding one another close in a community of love and growth. Our final song today is number 1064, Blue Boat Home. The words will be in the chat screen. Please keep your mics muted and sing along at home if you would like.
Oh, below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, till the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Go in love and bloom in the soil of this community. Peace, ashe, and may it be so. Your question for the breakout rooms today is, what was the best thing you experienced in the past 15 months?